Hey everyone, I want to share with you 7 things you didn't know about Bruce Lee. 1. Bruce Lee's first big Hollywood role was for the TV show Green Hornet. It was basically about a superhero who had this tiny black mask and this hat, and he drove this cool car, and the basic idea was Bruce Lee was this guy's sidekick and they would go around fighting crime. Number 2, he had hopes that this show would springboard him into a great Hollywood career in life, but it ended up only lasting 1 season. Even though it's still a fairly well-known show to this day, it only lasted 1 season. Even after they had a Batman and Robin crossover season finale with the Batman and Robin TV show at the time to try and revitalize the show. Number 3, Bruce had only one condition when he played Kato in Green Hornet, and that was that he would not do anything that demeaned the Chinese culture or him. He would not bow or act in a subordinate way. He wanted to be a partner to the Green Hornet rather than a sidekick. And I think looking back, it's quite amazing because everyone remembers Bruce Lee. Not as many people remember the actor who played the Green Hornet. Fun fact bonus, this isn't number 4, but it's fun fact bonus number 3. I couldn't resist. When the actor who played the Green Hornet was interviewed about Bruce Lee, he said that Bruce just always had this level of focus and intensity to whatever he did, and it always amazed him, extreme intensity. Number 4, Bruce's rise to stardom was not instant, contrary to popular belief. In fact, he struggled for many years, barely scraping by in very minor roles in Hollywood, and it was really tough on him, and he always had this incredible, crazy dream that he would make it, but it just wouldn't happen because Hollywood at the time just didn't have any roles for an Asian American male. Number 5, Bruce ended up being unable to penetrate the racial barrier in Hollywood, and so he got an idea from a producer friend to train elite Hollywood actors as a personal martial arts instructor. These were top Hollywood actors who really wanted to improve their martial arts. And he did. And he got really good at it. He trained some of the most elite Hollywood actors and became the top martial arts trainer to do this. Bruce worked really hard to network and pitch movie ideas while he was training these people. He almost got a movie idea running after spending months creating the script and really putting his heart and soul behind this. And it was called The Silent Flute. But at the last moment, he was denied. But he still didn't give up. He networked more and he met with the top Asian filmmaker in Hollywood. But that filmmaker would not give him any decent roles. He only offered him very minor roles, which he declined. Number 6, Bruce injured his back while weightlifting. He was told by his doctors that he would never be able to do martial arts or work out ever again because this was a crippling back paralysis accident. However, he didn't believe his doctors. He kept exercising, pushing, doing physical therapy, and pretty soon, within several months, he was back on his feet better than ever. In fact, he did 2,000 punches and kicks per day on both sides of left punch, right punch. And that's just incredible. In fact, Chuck Norris, when interviewed, you can look this up on YouTube if you don't believe me, when interviewed about Bruce Lee, he said that Bruce Lee had a problem, and I believe this was a problem, which was that he didn't know when to rest. Chuck Norris, he would work really hard. He and Bruce Lee would train for several hours per day in the afternoon, punching bags and doing martial arts. But Chuck knew how to rest and let his body recover. Bruce, on the other hand, could not rest. He would jump on the ground and do push-ups when Chuck tried to tell him, you have to let your engine recover. And it was really tough for Bruce to do that. So he was kind of like a over-workaholic, like a workaholic machine, which I don't think is the best thing to succeed. Like Chuck, I think, got it right. You need to let your muscles recover to grow stronger. 7, one day Bruce returned to visit China and was surprised to find out that the Green Hornet was a huge success over there. In fact, he was mobbed by hundreds of people when he arrived at the airport. And it turns out that they called the show the Kato Show. He ended up signing a 3-film deal with a filmmaker there, and the rest is history. He went on to do a lot of bigger films. Then he finally started transitioning these blockbuster hits and going to Hollywood in America to film some of his movies. And right at his peak, when things were finally starting to turn right, and he was filming a couple of his first big blockbuster films in America after massive hit after hit, he basically took some medicine to heal his headache that he was allergic to and that inflamed his brain and killed him. And that just sucks. I mean, it just really sucks. But it was a really interesting journey. And of course, when Bruce went to China and he saw that, I mean, a lot of people who knew Bruce said that he was enthralled by it. Like, no one ever really loved fame as much as Bruce did. Possibly because he had spent so long trying to get there. Putting that aside, I just want to give you some of my bonus facts, which I just think are probably the best facts about Bruce Lee. He has transcended time in a way, in the sense that all these really successful people have come forth, even to this day, after decades of his passing, to say how much they influenced him. You have a member of the Black Eyed Peas. You have Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players of all time, saying that Bruce Lee had such an influence on him, and how literally how it even made Kobe sign up, and I think he still practices this, Jeet Kune Do, which was the martial arts that Bruce Lee invented. You have all these MMA fighters and UFC fighters saying that Bruce Lee was the father of MMA and how they inspired him in some way. All these people coming forward saying how incredibly impactful Bruce was, even though he was mainly just an actor, a martial artist, teacher. Of course, he had his own martial arts studio before he got into Hollywood, and a bit of a philosopher. And yet he impacted so many different people of all these genres and ethnicities, all these game changers in the world. And I just find that incredibly inspiring and amazing in so many ways. Bruce Lee, he actually married a white woman in his early 20s. And at the time, that girl's parents disapproved of it, because at that time and age, interracial couples were not really a thing, and they didn't think that Bruce was able to provide for her. Of course, times have changed, and yet there's still a lot of improvement to go from here, but we're moving in the right direction. Another huge thing would be that you have all these other Asian stars, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, and yet Bruce is still considered, like, by some better than them. So I just find that incredibly amazing, to just see how much impact this guy has had, and the intensity and the work. It's really inspiring in a lot of ways. Of course, he was not perfect by any means of the imagination. He had his flaws like most humans do. But nonetheless, I think there's a lot you can learn about him. His focus, his intensity, his persistence, his ability to look past race. In fact, he started all these he started, I think it was 2 or 3 martial arts studios in California, and he opened his doors to any ethnicity. And this was looked at by everyone in China and everyone who was Chinese who lived in California as a travesty, a devastation, because you were not allowed to teach your secret martial arts teachings to outsiders or people who are not Chinese. And Bruce absolutely did not believe that. He taught to everyone, and what ended up happening was he said, okay, we will fight to determine if I can do this. And so he said, come fight me. And within 2 minutes, he beat out the guy who kept pushing and prodding him. So it's also a lesson, and again, a lot of men are just genetically naturally like this, but for those like me who aren't, it's also a lesson in terms of being an attractive man, by being an actually attractive man, by standing with your values and backing that up, not just with words, but with the ability to stand up for yourself physically and even fight if you have to. And that's what he did. And the crazy part was, after the fight, he went back in his head and he said, I should have been able to beat that guy in 10 seconds. What happened there? And even though he did it in 2 minutes, this guy was sort of like a martial arts maniac, and he just kept thinking and doing all these stuff to try and close that amount even more. I find that incredibly interesting, and I think it's something that you can apply to all sorts of areas of life, whether it's your dating life or it's your focus and analysis of your performance, whether you're an athlete at a sport or you're trying to succeed in business or your career. It's about not just being okay with your results, like of course celebrate your results, but also see how you can do better. Even if everyone else is fine with the fact, okay, you completed this task in 2 minutes, just for your own sake, for your own ability to improve even further, how can you do better? And I think that's something that all the great people in the world have. Whether it was Jerry Rice, one of the most successful football players in the world. I don't know anything about American football that much, but I do know that this guy was just so dedicated to his craft that when everyone else was just like, I'm going to do a 50-mile run and it's rookie season and all the rookie and newbies are trying out, Jerry Rice was out there and he would do like 200 laps, 200 kilometer sprints back and forth, and do like 5 times more than everyone else, even though he did not have to, even though no one cared or was really impressed. He still did that, not to show off, but to be the best. And I just think that's inspiring in and of itself. So there's a lot of interesting things, and that's all I really got to say in a nutshell about this guy. One last thing. I cannot help but say this bonus little fact about this guy. Bruce, if you've seen any recordings, there's only like 2 or 3 recordings where he spoke. I always thought he had an accent, but it turns out he doesn't. He has a British English accent, but he does not have a Asian, fresh off the boat, fobby, Chinese English accent. And there's really only 2 salvage videos on YouTube of him being interviewed and speaking. But first, I was very shocked that he could speak really well in English. But the second, and this is the more startling thing, was just how confident and sure of himself he was when he spoke. Just by the tone of how he spoke and the way he looked at you and how he talked to anyone, you just knew he would never ever stutter. He does not stutter at all when he speaks. There's not even a chance, just by the way he moves and talks. And for me, that was huge, because I'm a huge stutterer, and honestly, I'm not like Bruce in a lot of ways. But I do think that there's stuff that I can learn from him. And the lesson is not to try and copy exactly what someone else is, because we all have our different flavors. In fact, Jackie Chan succeeded by being different. He was actually competing with a lot of other martial arts Asian actors when he was first starting, just like Jet Li. But Jackie differentiated himself by being himself, which just so happened to be a more humorous type acting. When Bruce would punch, he would like coil back and like show off and have that serious face. When Jackie would punch, boom, then he'd be like, ooh, and he would feel the pain, because that's kind of how Jackie was. He was not a man's man. He was more of a realistic comedic humor martial artist. So I think you can also learn a lot from Jackie and Bruce, but there are elements that you can take from all these people and still remain your unique self. So I can learn from Bruce to not stutter as much, but I will not be that man's man tough guy that Bruce was, and I shouldn't try and be. So maybe you can learn something from that as well. As always, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace. Later.